Hello YouTube, and today we're going to do a review of Risk of Rain. Now, I'm going to make this new series. It's going to be roguelite to roguelike. It's essentially judging how close this is to a roguelite versus a roguelite, and I'm going to review a wide variety of games that are considered roguelike, roguelite, whatever on Steam, and kind of give you a scale. So, for example, roguelite is a game where you have permadeath and you essentially improve in some actually tangible in-game degree between each run. And when you complete, sometimes they'll have a completion, sometimes they won't, but every time you finish a run, there is a direct improvement to how you're able to play it the next time through. Now, roguelite, or roguelike, Like, is the type of game that you play where it does have permadeath, a similar mechanic to roguelites, but it is closer to the game that the entire genre is based off of, Rogue. So when you die, there is literally no permanent improvements to be purely roguelike. Now, I don't think there's an exact place for roguelike necessarily anymore in the game genre, but we can kind of look at these games and say, where do they fit on the scale between roguelite and roguelike? So today we're looking at Risk of Rain, a game. It's 2D. It's kind of a platform shooter style game. You'll notice the character models are quite small, and it is very well designed. So there's multiplayer of both local and online variety. You can do up to 4 local just by plugging in controllers and using keyboard controls, or you could do online, which I don't think there's really any limits set. We've done some fun stuff where literally we had about 8 or 9 people all on one same game playthrough. Granted, that has issues related to the mechanics of the game, but we'll get into that when we get into the actual gameplay. As far as options and different things, well, you'll notice how there's these item log, monster logs. They're pretty simple, and then options. The one big thing I had is there's actually good setup for most of this stuff, and I like the game bag controls. The issue with keyboard controls, the original buttons of these are Z, X, C, V, and honestly, having that plus your spacebar being jump, your hands way too clustered together. So I swapped it to more League of Legends style controls, and I've had no issues with it since. Way better control scheme. Makes it way smoother and much more comfortable, especially on those longer runs, because a general run on this, if you're going just to endgame, can take about an hour or so. If you go beyond endgame and go for endless, it could take even longer. Just up to you, and also it could go a lot shorter if you fuck it up. So going into single player, you'll notice a wide variety of characters. This is actually my desktop that I'm using today, because this game does have a slight issue. When you get up to very high end-game stuff, you'll have a problem where the number of particle effects on screen will actually overwhelm your computer's CPU. I've had my laptop, when I used to play it on there, overload multiple times, so just letting you know, if you go for the high level run count, or high level count runs, might end up with that issue, especially on characters like the chef or one of the other DPS style characters that doesn't do damage necessarily in burst, but is just causing constant damage over time, because they'll generate a lot of particle effects very quickly, especially with the number of numbers you generate on the chef. So you see, we have a wide variety of characters here. They're all about side upgrades. They're pretty much better at one thing or another. But I will say some characters do feel inherently weaker, that being Acrid, the Miner, and then Handy. Sniper is probably one of the stronger ones, but is probably the highest skill cap one, because of the mechanics of how the character used. Because you do an active reload as a sniper for every single shot, which is challenging in and among itself to get that every time, especially when you're considering the sheer quantity of things going on screen. So that's probably the only disadvantage, is some characters just feel weaker. But for the most part, all of these up here are most of these are all side upgrades. I'd say Huntress is probably the easiest one for a newer player, because she is the only one that can fire while moving, so you can compensate and dodge a large number of enemies. But when you start off with only the commando. Now you notice you have 3 difficulties. This is not necessarily difficulty in the standard sense. Difficulty increases based on time in game, and the different difficulties here just change how fast that scales up on difficulty. So viewing different things in there, you'll just have a harder time on Monsoon because hard will hit faster. Go down here, you have the artifacts, which these are gameplay variety things. Command is probably the only one that inherently makes the game easier, but they all change gameplay in some way. So, going into the game here, we just have this very simple... Oh. Why is this not giving me controls? Oh, there we go. Yeah, I noticed this old control scheme up there is pretty nasty. So, basically, you start off with these 4 abilities that you can use to defeat these starting enemies. You notice they're all on pretty short cooldowns, so it's all just kind of based on how you want to play it, on which abilities to use when. So, dealing with these guys, it's really easy at the start. You'll notice even the top right, we have the difficulty scaler saying it is very easy time right now. So, you'll have all these variety of items that you encounter in game. So, for example, this is a usable item. It lets you make a gate that you can then teleport back to by pressing the use button again, however you have it set on your control scheme. And you don't have to worry about necessarily going and picking up the gold, you just have to kill them, because all the items in the experience comes to you. So the main point is to focus on just being able to defeat whatever you encounter. And beyond the active items, there's also passive items that'll apply on chance or just inherently improve how your character functions. Now, this is where the kind of argument of roguelite versus roguelike comes into play. Do you get new stuff each time? Well, you get new character classes, yes, but that doesn't necessarily inherently make the game easier, necessarily, unless you're playing the Huntress, because that's probably the most beginner-friendly, but when you get later, you'll realize, really, she has her own disadvantages in scaling because of her fire rate. But you go into playing the commando at first, and you'll have a lot lower variety of items. For example, this item here, repulsion armor, that you won't get that until you unlock an in-game achievement, which there are a wide variety of them. As far as the starting items, they are definitely weaker, I'd say, or at least not set up for you to scale properly for in-game. So when you play this game and actually are trying to go to endgame, you won't really use the same gear as what you'll probably find your first run. But as I said, you do improve between runs, as in you get new items, and if you improve, like getting certain benchmarks, you'll unlock new character classes. So it is a little bit towards roguelite, but it's also a lot towards roguelike because of the way that you will inherently get just more item options, which to some degree makes it easier as you go. If you were able to beat this first run, I would actually be very surprised because of the way the items are for first run, because some of them don't even scale that well, and some of them, which are almost necessities to be able to run an entire run, are completely absent. So unless you have a lot of patience to slowly whittle down because you're not able to do as much damage as somebody who has all the items unlocked, or you're able to somehow just find some exploit where using the items that you start with you're able to generate a rapid amount of damage, good for you, but I don't think it's likely. You're going to take a few runs to beat the game. It's not going to be where you can just pure skill it. So, the objective here is to find a teleporter. And these teleporters could be pretty much anywhere in the map. When you start off, you have no idea where it is. Yeah, there's also these challenges, which are essentially other methods that you could possibly have to get items. For that one, you have to hunt down imps. Sometimes there's literally these ones that you can roll that are just random. If you win, you get something. If you don't, you just lose the money or whatever you put into them, depending on if they're damage or money or whatever value is on the statue. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but you know how that dodge roll, there are iframes on certain abilities. For example, on the dodge roll, there's invincibility. That means that wherever in the roll, you are pretty much immune to damage. You go to other characters, though, like the Huntress has a blink, and even though that blink makes you not exist for an area within the map, it doesn't necessarily make you immune to damage. So different things happen. So that was one of those random things I mentioned, and I lost. So I didn't get any item. And I just lost again. Woo. There we go. All good. Oops. Just kill this guy real quick, and I want that missile launcher there, please. So, just T-swap. Let's see if we can get another one. Oh, cool. Rusty Blade. Rusty Blade is one of those starter items, but it's really not very strong, because even when you get multiple of them, it just increases the chance that you'll inflict bleeding. It doesn't increase the damage or anything. So, it has a little bit of a drawback there. Bitter Roots, I believe, a non-starting item. And then, well, I think you kind of get it from here. Basically, you get passive items, you complete the game. And I'm getting a lot of actives. That is actually not good for a run, but it's random chance. You don't have control over it unless you have the command artifact, which lets you choose your items, so it's kind of overpowered. So those artifacts you actually have to find in-game. They're hidden in different areas in each map, and it's also random if those areas appear. It's not necessarily there will be that area and you can always go there to find that item. Because sometimes there just won't be the path to even reach the item existing in the map. So the maps don't super change. They kind of change a little bit in variety. They don't completely change entirely. There's areas that'll change, like sometimes this area will just have like a ledge overhang and not this sort of just pits like this one does. And I'm definitely getting value of that reflective shield because I have no healing items yet. Okay, there we go. So that up there is the teleporter, and you have to hit that in order to be able to progress, and when you do hit it, you'll notice that a boss will spawn. In this case, it's the easy boss. Cool. So that is the first boss for this run. It can be a variety of bosses. It's not always the same. It could be this easy boss, or it could be a more annoying one, like the magma worm. But that's all up to randomness, and not really much we can do to control randomness. So, again, I have no healing items, so I'm still kind of a little bit exposed here. Actually, let's just go ahead. I did not mean to roll there. We'll go ahead and activate this here. I want to at least try to... Yeah, why not? I'll blow all of my money there. So money at the end of the round just turns into pure XP. In this case, blowing my money to trigger the fireworks over and over is not terrible because it actually dealt damage to things. I think I'll be able to handle this. It's not bad. But if you notice, I don't have a lot of damage. I don't have a lot of items that just purely improve how I shoot fire damage. So it's kind of slow going. And this is really what you'd expect trying to do the first run, because you won't have items that will just objectively make you better. Like, there's ones that improve fire rate, which would be very helpful here, especially on this character who just rapid fires. There's other ones that decrease ability cooldowns. And we have of course, better actives than this, ones that actually heal me versus just leaving me exposed like this. And I think you get the gist of it. I just want to finish this out so we can... And I'll give you my final thoughts on roguelike versus roguelite. I'd say this game, I think, is a pretty fun one as far as gameplay-wise. You notice that I've definitely played this a few times, but it's not super beginner painful, especially in situations, especially after you get all the items, because it removes kind of the artificial difficulty of having items that don't scale that you start with. So I'd say, for the most part, since most of the stuff you unlock is variety, it has a little bit of a leaning towards roguelike, but you lose a little bit of the... You lean a little bit more towards roguelite because the items, the passive items that you get, are objectively locked behind multiple runs. So if we return to menu here, this is another varied area. You can have up to 2 different areas for every tier. So here's the scores on unlockables. You notice that. Here's my stats, I think, for that last run, or stats for a long run, I guess. I don't even remember using that item. But here are challenges, and challenges unlock purely new items. So, for example, gasoline is kill 20 Lemurians, which are those little sort of blackish dark things that you fight at the very beginning. Or survive a battle with less than 20 health. You get lost all. And so on and so forth. There's a large variety of challenges. Some of them are class specific. But they will give you new items that available. And as I said, this is my second time playing through everything, and since I did it all on my laptop first, but I didn't even want to risk it possibly crashing on me, because that resource draw. You also get monster logs, which give you interesting information about every single monster and boss in the game. That I won't spoil that if I can get back out of here. Oh yeah, I forgot it. This is one annoying thing. You notice how the audio just purely cuts off the second you hit escape. I feel like that's because given how just interesting and good this music is, I don't like that. It's just annoying to me. But yeah, that's Risk of Rain. It's a good roguelite. I'd rate it as a probably 8 or 9 out of 10, because after you get all the items, I've put a ridiculous number of hours into this. So it's just a fun one to come back to and play because the gameplay is so satisfying. I will say I would not consider it roguelike. It is definitely has enough elements of roguelite in it to put it at least about, I'd say, like a quarter of the way up the scale from roguelike, especially given the fact that the items inherently make the early runs harder when you don't have those better items that scale you. And the artifacts too, I think, because when you get some of those artifacts and you turn them on, the game is just flat easier. The command artifacts specifically, because you can just pick only scaling items and only the items you need for the situation. So when you have the command artifact, you will basically do better. There's no doubt about it. You'll have the items you want. So yep, that's Risk of Rain, and I'll see you guys later with the next roguelite, whatever. You know what I mean.